So you go to a job interview and everybody knows that the first question they ask, the icebreaker, if you will, is usually some form of the question, tell me about yourself. They could say, please introduce yourself. Or they could apply any other permutation or variation of that question. This is one of them where they say, tell me something about yourself that's not on your resume. Okay? Now, I got to get the obvious stuff out of the way first. Do these people have your resume memorized? In 99% of cases, I would say absolutely not. You're sometimes lucky if these people even know one thing that's on your resume when you get to the job interview. The reason for that usually is, if we're talking about recruiters here, it's usually because when they do job interviews, like a lot of things, you would schedule them back to back. So you're talking to several candidates in a row. And there's usually not a lot of time between the interviews. So if you do an interview, maybe there's a recruiter at the interview, maybe one or two other people, like, a hiring manager or something like that. And in a perfect world, they would interview a candidate, and then, the interview goes for, 45 minutes or something. And then the candidate leaves, you say your farewells, they leave, and then the recruiter and hiring manager might have a few minutes to discuss how it went, and then maybe do some preparation for the next interview they have that starts in a few minutes. Right? That's how it would go in a perfect world. But usually people are rushed. Interviews go longer than you think. And so there's not a lot of preparation done. So by the time the one interview ends and people get up and, go to the washroom, come back, it's time for the next interview. The next candidate is here, and you haven't had any time to really look down at, the person's application or their resume and refresh yourself as to who is this person. Now, the great thing about job interviews from the perspective of the interviewer is that if you ask an icebreaker question like, tell me about yourself, you really don't have to know anything about the person you're talking to to start the conversation, right? Because whoever it is, you just say, tell me about yourself. And then they start explaining to you who they are and what they have and all this, right? And then you can just go from there. And the thing that you usually have in front of you as an interviewer is you have their resume, right? So my point is that a lot of times, the person who's at a job interview asking questions to you, the interviewer, they don't know what's on your resume. They may have read your resume at one point, but by the time of the interview, they've forgotten pretty much everything that's on there. So if you were to answer the question, tell me something about yourself that's not on your resume, if you were to answer that question with something that is on your resume, they probably wouldn't notice. That's the first thing I want to say. Now, you can choose to interpret this question as tell me something about yourself, and you're free to say anything you want, whether or not it's on your resume. Or you could answer this question specifically the way it was meant. Okay? That's what I want to get out of the way first. So if you just interpret this question as tell me about yourself, and the answer to tell me about yourself is you give a sort of 1 minute overview of your resume, your education and your basic work experience in 1 minute, just the very quick overview. You do not want to spend a ton of time on this question because you want to get to the point of the interview where you give them compelling reasons to hire you. You don't rehash things you've done from other people that, and other jobs that you've done in the past that might not be relevant to why you're the greatest person for this job. Okay, so that's the first disclaimer. There's another disclaimer I want to make that I've got to do, and that this is kind of a stupid question. Let's be honest. Everything relevant about you as a candidate will be on your resume. The only possible exceptions to that are your social skills and your motivations. Okay, your incentives. So like how good you are as a person, what you're like as a person to deal with, that's obviously not on your resume. But they're getting a sample of that by talking to you at the job interview. So it doesn't need to be on your resume. And even if it was, it wouldn't matter. That's the kind of thing that you verify through personal interaction. Your motivations, why you're here, and do you really want this job, or are you just looking for anything? That's something that they're going to ask you questions about. Okay, so that's going to come out through other channels. So this is kind of a dumb question. If something is not on your resume, presumably it's not relevant, So that's another reason why this question throws candidates. Right? Because it's like, well, why do you want to know something that isn't on my resume? The only stuff I've left off my resume are trivial things that don't matter to this, right? Okay. The problem is that you get some recruiters these days with master's degrees in psychology that, they're just oblivious to the skills required to do a job. And instead, it's all about psychology. It's all about, making judgments about you based on these silly little quick superficial things. Right? The first of which is not visibly being annoyed when they ask you a question this stupid. So don't have a negative reaction and control your body language. Okay? If they ask you a question that you think is just like, what? Don't show frustration or confusion or anything like that. Just take it in your stride. That's why it helps to do mock job interviews to practice this stuff. Okay, let's get to answering the actual question here. Okay. So here's a general rule about job interviews. Never guess what they're asking you. If you don't understand what they're asking, don't just ramble. Get clarification, okay? Now, I did a video a long time ago that tackles how to answer this question, and what I did there is kind of what I'm going to do here, where I'm going to give you 3 answers in the order of increasing sophistication, okay? So the most basic answer to this, that would be a pass, is to give them a personality trait of yours, an element of your personality, okay? And say something to the effect of well, I'm someone that really values having good work relationships, or something like that. Tell me something about yourself that's not on your resume. Well, the answer is I'm a person that really values strong working relationships with my coworkers, something like that. I say this because when I interoperate with them, I found that the work is much more efficient and pleasant when you get along with people and you know a bit about them. And so I value that. And that's what I try and create in every work type situation that I find myself in. Something like that. That would be a basic answer to this question. That's not on your resume, but yet it's something that's relevant to this job that you're going for. And it's something that is probably a prerequisite to getting this job. Most jobs would require you to be somewhat social, so it's a pretty universal trait, and most interviewers are checking for stuff like that. So you could do a lot worse than say that. Okay, so answer number 1 would be to give a basic element of your personality. Okay, however, if you want to take this to the next level, like if you're no longer interviewing for an entry-level job and you want to, give a bit more sophisticated answer, it might make more sense to get some clarification as to what specifically they're looking for. So for that reason, the simple template answer to this question will be to simply say, certainly, what would you like to know? Right? And that puts the ball back in their court to clarify a little bit, kind of along the lines of what they're looking for. Because this question is so general. And that can be a big problem if you don't know what to say because it's so general. It's like saying, "Okay, welcome. Thank you for coming to this job interview. It's great to have you here. I'm looking forward to interacting with you. Okay, so start talking." It's like that's basically what they're doing here. They're saying, "Tell me something about yourself." Like you could talk about your childhood, you could talk about your food dislikes, you could talk about your philosophy for how to manage people, you could talk about your political opinions. You could talk about, your vital statistics, how much you weigh and your blood type and all. You know what I mean? Like like technically those would all be answers to this question. None of that's on your resume, and it is to do with you, but you know what I mean? Like, they're probably not looking for that stuff. They're looking for something that's relevant to you being a candidate for this job. That's the context clue. But if you want to really be safe, you can throw the question back in a polite, pleasant way and say, certainly, what would you like to know? Right? You're not being troublesome. You're working with them, and you're not making them feel awkward in any way. That's the second level answer. Okay. And then finally, as a third level, as a third possibility, a way to answer this question is in a job interview, one of the standard things that most people, certainly all recruiters, look for. Most hiring managers look for this, but not necessarily. They're looking for passion. They're looking for a desire to do this job specifically. Okay, so they don't want to just hire anyone who's got skills. They want to hire someone who's got skills who they believe really wants to do this specific job. They're excited about working at this company. They're excited about doing this particular role specifically. That's the candidate that most recruiters and hiring managers are looking for. So a great thing in general that you can do when you're at a job interview is tell them that you want this job. You specifically state that. And you don't say it in a desperate way, like I need a job, I need money. You say it in an inspired way, in the sense that, like, wow, this is like a perfect job opportunity for me. I really want this job. There's a lot of other jobs out there, but like, I want this one, right? That's what you want them to believe about you. Okay. So why do I say that? I say that because this question can be a perfect opportunity for you to say that stuff. They're giving you the floor. They've asked you a very general question. Tell me something about yourself, right? That's not on your resume. Okay, if you want to be technical about it. This is a perfect opportunity for you to say the I want this job thing if you haven't yet said it in an interview. Now, if they ask you this question right at the very beginning, it may feel a bit weird jumping right into this, but it doesn't have to. Okay, so regardless of whether they ask this question at the beginning, at the middle, or at the end of your interview, I maintain that this is a great platform to use to answer the whole, to say the whole I want this job thing. So, they say, so tell me something about yourself, not on your resume. And you say, well, I think probably the most relevant thing you should know is that I want this job specifically. I think this is a tremendous opportunity for me. And then you go into reasons. It's because it seems from the job description that it combines skills in this area, which I have, with this or these personality traits, which I also have, with this other education or these other skills or traits over here, which I also have. And it's a great way for me to bring my skills in these three separate areas all to bear into one role, which is an amazing opportunity for me, because usually people are looking for one of these or one or two of them most, but this job is looking for all three, and I have all three. So I'm really excited about this, and I just want you to know that, right? So you could use this question as a platform to say that stuff. You would like to say that stuff at some point in the interview. They're giving you an open floor here, so it's a perfect opportunity. Okay, so that's what I would say. There's three answers in order of increasing sophistication of how to answer the question. Tell me something about yourself that's not on your resume. Number one is just give an element of your personality. Number two is you say, certainly, what would you like to know? Get some clarification. And then the third one is use it as a vehicle to basically say, I want this job. Hopefully that makes sense. And incidentally, I just want to remind everyone, if you are looking for a job right now and your job search campaign is not going anywhere fast and you're wondering about what to do, what's the right thing to do, what's the way I can do all this stuff, check out that course. That will help you tremendously. It's a very popular course. It's my most popular course. Hundreds of people have taken that course, and I've heard pretty much universally positive things all around. So I know it's helping people. Link in the description.